3 days before the biggest deal of my life closed, my own lawyer asked me to lie. Not a small lie either. The kind that sticks to you. The kind people remember when things fall apart later. I was standing in my kitchen when he said it. Early morning. Coffee gone cold on the counter. The refrigerator humming like it always does when the house is too quiet. At first, I thought I heard him wrong. Say the deal failed. Victor Langford told me over the phone. Calm voice. Same voice he used in boardrooms for years. Just for a little while. I remember staring at the window above the sink. Honestly. I laughed. A quick, stupid laugh. Victor, I said. The acquisition closes this week. I know. He answered. Silence after that. The heavy kind. Here's the part that made it worse. Victor had been my lawyer since the beginning. Since the days when my company was basically a folding table, 2 soldering tools, and a prototype that kept overheating. He helped me survive lawsuits, investors, patent fights, all of it. So when he asked me to lie, I didn't hang up. I just stood there holding the phone. Anyway, I should probably start properly. My name is Scarlett Hayes, 35 years old. 9 years ago, I started a robotics component company in a rented garage in Austin. Long nights, burnt coffee, machines that screamed when the bearings misaligned. Somehow that mess turned into Hayes Microdynamics. And last week, a medical robotics corporation agreed to buy it for $42 million. That should have been the end of the story. Instead, it was the moment everything began to break. Because Victor hadn't finished explaining why he needed that lie. I started Hayes Microdynamics in a garage that smelled like hot metal and cheap coffee. Not a metaphor. A literal garage. My old boss stared at me when I resigned. You're leaving a stable robotics job for this? He asked. Yeah. For what exactly? I shrugged. A prototype. He leaned back in his chair. Scarlett, prototypes don't pay rent. Neither does regret. I said. That was the last normal conversation I had for a while. The first year was ugly. Machines breaking. Suppliers ghosting me. One investor actually laughed during a pitch. You're asking for $200,000, he said, tapping the table, to manufacture parts no one can see. They're inside surgical robots, I said. So invisible. Precise. He slid my proposal back across the table. Pass. 3 weeks later, Victor Langford walked into the garage wearing a suit that probably cost more than my equipment. He looked around, the smell of burnt bearings hanging in the air. You're Hayes, he asked. Depends. I said. You here to sue me or help me? Victor opened my patent folder and flipped through it slowly. This legal structure is a disaster, he said. I know. But the technology works. Yeah. He closed the folder. Then we fix everything before someone steals it. That's how Victor became my lawyer. Which is why, 9 years later, his voice on that phone call didn't sound right. Not calm, not controlled, just tired and scared. The acquisition offer showed up on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at the workshop when my phone buzzed. The milling machine behind me was whining again, that sharp metal scream it always makes before something breaks. Victor's name lit up on the screen. Scarlett, he said. Are you sitting down? No. Should I be? Helios Medical Systems contacted my office. I leaned against the workbench. They want to talk about acquiring Hayes Microdynamics. I laughed. Honestly, I thought he was messing with me. Victor, they're a global robotics company. I'm aware. They buy billion-dollar manufacturers. They also buy precision component suppliers, he said calmly. Silence for a second. What did they offer? I asked. We don't have a formal number yet. Ballpark. Early signals suggest around 40 million. I wiped grease off my hands with a rag. You serious? Yes. Negotiations dragged on for months after that. Lawyers, auditors, engineers asking endless questions. Victor handled most of it. One night, after a long call with Helios executives, I said, if this actually closes, I might finally sleep. Victor didn't laugh. Instead, he said something strange. Success changes the people around you. Scarlett, meaning, just be careful who needs something from you when the number becomes real. At the time, I thought he was talking about investors. Turns out, he wasn't. He was talking about someone much closer to him. Victor called me 3 days before the closing. I was in my kitchen. The coffee had gone cold beside the sink, and the refrigerator made that low buzzing sound it always makes when the house is too quiet. "Scarlett," he said, "I need to ask you for something unusual. Victor doesn't ask for things. Victor sends contracts." "What kind of unusual?" There was a pause, long enough that I pulled the phone away and checked the screen. "When the acquisition is announced," he said carefully. "I'd like you to describe it as uncertain." "Uncertain," I said. "Victor, the deal is finished. I know. Helios signed the final documents. I'm aware. So what exactly are you asking me to say? That negotiations stalled," he said. "That the outcome isn't clear yet." I let out a short laugh. "You want me to tell people the $42 million acquisition didn't happen?" "For now." My stomach tightened. "Victor, that's not spin. That's lying." "I understand how it sounds." "Do you?" I said. "Because Helios, my employees, investors, everyone will hear it." Another pause. "Scarlett," he said quietly, "I'm asking you to do this when my daughter is present." I straightened. "Isabella." "Yes." "What does Isabella have to do with my company?" Silence stretched again. "You'll understand soon," he said. "Victor, if this is some kind of legal strategy, it isn't." The refrigerator buzzed louder in the quiet kitchen. "Just give me a little time," he said. "A few weeks?" Then his voice dropped, almost unrecognizable. "Please." And that word stopped me. In 9 years of working together, Victor Langford had never said it once. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone like it might explain itself. Victor's daughter, Isabella Langford. I'd met her maybe 4 times over the years. Conferences, a holiday dinner once. Tall, sharp voice, always moving like she was late for something bigger. She ran a venture fund now, Langford Catalyst Partners. At least that's what she told people. I remembered a conversation from a robotics summit last spring. Hotel ballroom smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. Isabella walked up to me holding a glass of champagne. "Scarlett Hayes," she said. "You're the reason half the surgeons in this room are getting faster robots." That sounds exaggerated. She smiled. Investors love exaggeration. "What do you invest in?" I asked. "Robotics acquisitions," she said. "Specifically the kind founders don't want public yet." I frowned. Meaning companies like yours?" I thought she was joking. "You planning to buy my company?" I said. "No," she replied, calm as anything. "But my fund helps connect investors to deals before they're announced." I remember laughing then. "You might want to wait until I actually sell the thing." Isabella tilted her head. "Oh," she said softly. "I already know that's coming." At the time, I thought she meant industry rumors. Now, sitting alone in my kitchen, Victor's phone call replaying in my head, that conversation didn't feel like small talk anymore. It felt like a warning I completely missed. I called Noah Hayes the next morning. If you've got a cousin who works cybersecurity and spends half his life digging through corporate records, you learn to use that resource carefully. He answered on the second ring. "Scarlett," he said, voice rough with sleep. "It's 8 in the morning. Yeah, sorry. I need you to look into something." "You calling about patents again?" "No. That bad." "Probably." I gave him the name. Isabella Langford. Her firm is called Langford Catalyst Partners. Silence for a moment. Then I heard his keyboard start clicking. "Where'd you hear about them?" he asked. "Just check what you can find." "Scarlett, please." More typing. A drawer sliding open on his end. A few minutes passed. "Okay," Noah said slowly. "First thing the firm says it manages $280 million. Says that's the number they advertise. You think it's inflated? I think the trail behind it is thin. I leaned against the counter. What else I'm seeing investor complaints on a private forum. People saying they haven't received reports in months. That could be delays. Could be, he said. But there's more. Papers rustled. One of those investors uploaded part of a pitch presentation. My stomach tightened. And Scarlett, your company is in it. What do you mean front page? Hayes Microdynamics logo. A slide describing your acquisition. That's impossible. The slide says your company is sourcing robotics acquisitions for their fund. That's a lie. Yeah, Noah said quietly. Another pause. Scarlett, he added. This presentation credits legal structuring advice from Victor Langford. I closed my eyes. And Victor? Noah said carefully. Isn't that your lawyer? Noah went quiet after he said Victor's name. I leaned back in the chair. The leather creaked. Yeah, I said. Victor's been my lawyer for 9 years. Noah exhaled slowly. Then this is worse than I thought. How's Scarlett? The presentation doesn't just reference your company. It leans on it. That doesn't make sense. I'm looking at the slides right now. Paper shifted on his desk. One page says Hayes Microdynamics is finalizing a robotics acquisition worth more than $40 million, he said. And it tells investors the opportunity came through Langford Catalyst's sourcing network. My stomach tightened. That's not true. I figured, and the acquisition closes in 3 days. Exactly. The milling machine behind me kicked on automatically, that familiar high-metal whine filling the garage. So once the deal is public, I started. Every investor will realize Isabella never sourced anything, Noah said. And they'll start asking where the story came from. Right? And regulators are already watching. There are 2 complaints filed so far, he said. I rubbed my face with both hands. That's why Victor called me, I said quietly. He needs the truth delayed. Looks that way. Silence stretched between us. Then Noah cleared his throat. There's another problem. Of course there is. In the documents, it reads like you were part of the arrangement. My chest tightened. If investigators believe that, he said, you could get pulled into the same mess. I stared at the machine spinning in the corner. Victor hadn't just asked for a lie. He'd asked me to buy time for his daughter, and maybe for me too. I drove to Victor's office the next morning. No appointment, no warning. His assistant stood when I walked in. Scarlett. Mr. Langford is in a meeting. Not anymore, I said. Before she could argue, I pushed open the door. Victor sat behind his desk with his reading glasses low on his nose. The office smelled faintly of old paper and stale coffee. He looked up at me. You found it, he said quietly. I dropped the printed presentation onto his desk. My company logo, I said. My acquisition. Your daughter's investor pitch. Victor didn't reach for the papers. He already knew what they were. How long have you been aware? I asked. About 6 weeks? I stared at him. 6 weeks, I repeated. And you didn't think to tell the client whose name she's using I tried to stop her. That's not the same thing. Victor removed his glasses and set them down. She raised $280 million from investors, he said. They believe her firm has access to private robotics acquisitions, except it doesn't. No. And she used my deal to sell that illusion. Yes. The room went quiet. I tapped the papers on his desk. So you asked me to say the acquisition collapsed. I asked you to slow the truth down, he said. For how long? Long enough for her to unwind the fund and repay investors. And if she can't, Victor finally met my eyes. Then investigators step in. I crossed my arms. You're asking me to help hide securities fraud. I'm asking you to give my daughter a chance to fix what she broke. He looked back at the papers. Because if this unravels today, he said quietly, her future will be decided in a courtroom. The announcement was scheduled at a robotics conference in San Diego. Helios liked spectacle. Big stage, media cameras, Investors in the audience pretending not to watch each other. Backstage smelled like hot metal from the lighting rigs. I stood near the curtain holding the speech card they'd handed me 5 minutes earlier. Victor was in the second row. Isabella sat beside him. Dark suit. Perfect posture. Like nothing in the world was wrong. Victor looked at me once. No expression. Isabella smiled. She walked over before the presentation began. "Scarlett," she said. Voice smooth. "Big day." "Yeah. I heard the negotiations with Helios got complicated. They're finished." Her eyebrow lifted slightly. "Finished." I studied her for a second. "Your father asked me to say something else." Her smile held, but it tightened. "Did he?" "He suggested I tell people the deal collapsed." She didn't answer right away. Then she leaned closer. "That might be a very useful version of events," she said quietly. "For who? For everyone involved." The stage manager stepped out from the wings. 2 minutes. Isabella straightened her jacket. "Markets hate surprises," she said. "Stories work better when they change slowly." Then she walked back to her seat. The host stepped to the microphone and said my name. I walked onto the stage. The lights were bright enough to erase the audience, but I could still see Victor sitting still in the front row, Isabella beside him. I held the microphone. "This week," I said. "Steady. Hayes Microdynamics finalized an acquisition agreement with Helios Medical Systems. $42 million. The room went quiet, not shocked, just very, very still. And in the second row, Victor closed his eyes. I saw Victor again almost a year later. Small coffee place in Austin. The espresso machine hissed every few seconds behind the counter. He looked older. Isabella cooperated with investigators. He said, "I heard. She's paying investors back. Slowly. That's something." Victor nodded. "I was angry with you at first," he admitted, "for saying the number out loud that day. 42 million? I said, yes." He rubbed his hands together. "But you forced the truth to happen early, before it got worse." I didn't answer right away. "You once told me precision matters," he said. "I meant engineering. You were talking about integrity." When we stood to leave, he paused. "Scarlett, thank you." I walked outside thinking about the garage where this whole thing started. Here's the thing I've learned. Money changes people around you faster than it changes you. If you ever build something valuable, protect the truth around it as hard as you protect the business itself. Anyway, if you've ever been in a moment where doing the right thing cost you something real, you probably know exactly what that feels like.